Maybe just sing a bar of your favorite musical. Ready? Go.
Let it go. Let it go.
Dig it. Amazing.
Ari's been prepping that one forever, and that was right off the rip.
Yeah.
My big moment. Really.
Ari, that's going to make the trailer. There's Jake. Amazing. Cool. Well, thank you all for jumping in on this Monday morning. Cheers. Just got my coffee.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Oh yeah.
And
there you go.
It's 4:30, so not coffee. more like beer time.
There you go.
I love coffee and chocolate. This group here. So next time we'll do that next time.
Totally.
Sounds good.
Ari? I don't even know. What's your love language, Ari? I know Axe's. I know Jake's.
I'd say probably coffee. Good thing.
Oh, okay. All right. So you and Jake are coffee buddies.
Kind words and coffee.
Axe and I can. Oh, kind words and coffee. Yes. Ari, you look great today. Cool. Well, I wanted to thank you all, by the way, for taking so much time and joining us. We've been recording this whole time, and I love just jumping right into it. A little bit of backstory here. So this will end up being episode 2 of Building Stacklist, and the idea that Martina and I want to do is make sure that we documented this whole process. For the other podcast that I'm running, Zero to I've heard so many people say like they wish they had sort of documented the process early on of all the little ups and downs and learnings and wins and things like that. And so I thought, how interesting to basically use the podcast medium to try and kind of document it. I don't know why sometimes it feels like road rules or what's the other one? What's the other good one? Road rules and real world. But like sometimes doing confessionals of like, this is super hard, or this is like, we don't know where we're going. And then other times where we're like, we know exactly where we're going. we know exactly how this is going to turn out. But I thought what would be really interesting is, as our closest partner, from the first time that I came up and out into the world to start to talk to people about Stacklist, the universe has Jake and I collide, and ever since, I think all of us have kind of talked multiple times a day or a week, and so I think what would be really interesting is I'd love to also maybe start by going around and having Axe, you and Jake and Ari talk a little bit about your backgrounds, but really maybe kick off if one of you wants to talk about Nucleus and what the mission and vision is, so that we can set that context of how Nucleus plays into Stacklist's journey.
Yeah, no doubt. Kyle, appreciate you teeing that up. And I'd be wrong of me to steal Jake's thunder, given you two met so serendipitously in the wild when you first emerged. So I'll let Jake give the Nucleus overview.
It sounds like I am taking over the reins here. Thank you, Michael. And yeah, I think we are definitely all on the same page. I think everyone on this call, Martina, we've heard so much about you, and we hear amazing things about you and how you've been able to help Stacklist too. So this feels like the OG group of people that have really seen it all come to fruition. Diving in quickly about Michael, Ari, and myself, I'll let them introduce themselves after individually, but we are really here, I think, for this podcast and being next to you, Kyle, and talking about Stacklist because it really envisions what we do at Nucleus and who we are. I think at the core, what we really like to do and what we aim to do is just to connect great people to great people. But after meeting you, actually, which we talk about as a business, it's more about connecting great people to great people that have great products and great platform that also like to help people too. And I think that's where you really brought Stacklist and us to life, and it really catered that to actually help us introduce you to people within our network. And that's really what Nucleus is. We are a network development firm that aims to connect you with the right people to kind of further your business or further just your networking, to take you to the next level in all facets of life. So we've been in business for about a year now. We actually just reached a year 2 weeks ago. We've made close to 2,000 introductions for all different people in different walks of life. And the whole purpose of what we do is like we mentioned, is to really help the people closest to us and the people that we believe in get to the next level through introductions, through warm introductions, not cold introductions that you see online and you're reaching out cold on LinkedIn. We want the people closest to us to meet the other people that are closest to us. And that's really who we are as a company. So pass it over maybe to Mike. Mike, if you want to give a background on you, and then maybe your interpretation of Nucleus, and then we can keep the conversation.
Yeah. I'm just going to build off of what you said, because I think the Nucleus Stacklist partnership has been such a perfect case study for, I think, both sides to show what you just talked about, Jake. Like, the warm introduction is really what fuels like growth for every individual, every company. They're always looking to get in front of the right people, as Jake mentioned, whether that's an investor or a new hire, whether that's an advisor or a new customer. And what I love about our relationship here with Kyle, you, Martina, and Stacklist is the warm introductions span kind of all different areas of business. It's not just, hey, we're looking for potential investors. It's, hey, we're looking to build out our team. We're looking for customers. We're looking for partners. We're looking for events, influencers. And that's where I think why we've been able to see so much success collectively as a group is because there's so much opportunity that we get to pick kind of which ones to prioritize on a week by week basis, and then dive deep into those specific subsections and say, hey, you know what? We really want to do a huge influencer push at the beginning of Q4. So let's really get in front of as many of those types of people as possible. Actually, now we're looking to do more events, or we're looking to, finish out our fundraising round. So that's what I've loved most about it, is kind of how dynamic it's been. And, I think it's a double-edged sword, because sometimes when companies work together and there's a specific goal in mind, that can be helpful because you can be laser focused. But I think kind of taking that trickle down effect is also helpful, where there's so many rooms for partnership that we've been able to work on together. It's been great to see that come to fruition.
Totally agree. There's so much I want to unpack there, but I want to let Ari. I love your not only POV of Nucleus, but also just sort of a high level of working with us.
Yeah, so for me, it's honestly been an incredible journey from the start of working with you, Kyle. I think my favorite part has just been the collaboration of everything, whether it's working with Princess on different stacks and working with you throughout this whole process has been pretty incredible to kind of work through different facets. As Michael was saying, it's been spanning so many different avenues, whether it is influencers or helping with different fundraising things or anything like that, while also getting so into the platform itself and seeing it all kind of trickle down from you, Martina, and from you, Kyle, and seeing this kind of brainchild really take form and grow and come into this incredible product, an incredible thing that I get excited to tell my friends about. And I know that Jake and Michael get excited to share with our partners, because not only are we introducing a great product, but also great people. And that's our favorite thing to do.
Yeah, I have two things I want to add real quick, Kyle. The first one is, and I think we're all saying the same thing here, it's really not like Nucleus and Stacklist. We are effectively like extensions of each other's teams. We're in the weeds every day, in the detail, in the nitty gritty. And that's what's most exciting, is that we're building together, not really for one another, for each other at the same time. So that's what's been kind of the most exciting part, like seeing, how that I think is different from a lot of other partnerships or relationships that you see in business, where it's like a, one size fits all type of relationship.
Yeah, no, I would agree. And I would just to yes and that, I would say that, in former lives, I built out the strategic alliance and partnership division at Sprinkler, which I think at the time I came in was 120 people, and by the time I left, that was like 1,200 people. And during that period, that's essentially what we were building, is those sort of partnerships with people like Deloitte and Accenture and others. But it was a true partnership where you were really in it with everyone all the time, and it feels like whatever the opposite of a traditional sort of vendor kind of relationship is, right? Where we've got an agreement in, and you are going to do X, Y, and Z, and I promise that I will do X, Y, and Z. That it's really just, we're in it so much together every day and every week. We've got our shared Slack, and we're doing calls and text messages, and it really does feel like an extension of our team, which has been crucial because, starting out as a as a startup from idea to proof of concept to a thing that people can log into and use and see if they like it, immediately you sort of really want to, and I think our goal has been to try and not go to the traditional routes of like paid advertising and just paying a handful of influencers to talk about it and see who comes in, but to really cut straight through all the layers and almost get to like boss level immediately, which is y'all's network is so amazing. And also the ability, I've seen it in action, especially with you, Jake, and you active of seeing like the wheels turning and being like, I got it, you should talk to so and so, and there's probably a calendar invite within an hour of someone saying that, which is just amazing. And what I love about it is the evolution, again, to away from that sort of traditional, like, a vendor says, I can help provide you these things, and you provide them, and then you have a weekly check-in, and you sort of, is this going well? Or, and we're reviewing the SOW, and like just all the sort of BS things, and more just like being in it together, which I'm sure also provides you all with the ability to sort of really understand the inner workings of what we do, and how companies like us work, and when you see things working, that it helps that sort of algorithm of networking and connection on y'all's end.
Well, Kyle, you're talking about the inner workings. That's personally my favorite part about this relationship is we live and breathe Stacklist daily with you and with our clients. It's been our medium for sharing lists of people or places or things. And again, that's obviously, of course, when we're working together, but after an event, sending a recap and saying, here's the list of people that came, or having a friend visit a city and saying, this is the itinerary you need to make sure you hit in this city. And again, that could be people, places, and things. And it's just made our lives so much easier by being in the inner workings, to your point, of the product. And that's why I think this has worked so well. It's like we so strongly believe in not only you, but the product and the company that you're building, that it's kind of like the core of who we are and the communication that we have with our clients. It's ingrained in it daily, day in and day out.
I'd love to hear, Martina, your perspective on, so Martina, you know, uh, came in, I mean, within the first month of the first sort of early lines of code, and sort of took the reins as the CTO, starting with the lead developer and then into CTO, and has really owned and run every bit of development and technology and integration and all of those pieces. Um, but just in the past, 2 weeks has also taken on the co-founder role, and so it's sort of coming up and out from just being in the code and sort of and seeing and steering the ship with me on all the things. And so I'd love to hear, Martina, like, your perspective of, I know you've heard of the Nucleus Network and of these three gentlemen, like, early on, but then just more and more being exposed to it, and your thoughts.
No, I would say that it looks like a perfect combination, because what you guys mentioned about cold emails and cold outreach is so much different when you're doing that in person or virtually, because you can much more express yourself better if you're explaining or sharing or whatever. Sometimes in those cold emails, when you're reaching out, you cannot actually get to the point of what you are trying to say or maybe show, what you can do in person. And that's like a huge difference, I would say. In my previous life, I was working in many startups, and most of those were like cold emails, cold reach outs, just making sure, begging that somebody would respond. But in this setup, that you actually meet the person, and that person knows like a bunch of other people that you can introduce you to, and the connections that are made all around, it's so valuable, I would say, definitely. And it's so good to be outside of the code, at least for a while.
I would say one of the best examples of that, of working with you all, is what Martina was talking about with the cold emails, and sort of trying to spend a lot of time and effort crafting those just right, hoping a hook is going to catch. You're going to like have the subject line or the first sentence is, oh, they're just gonna like, they're gonna want to open this, or they're gonna want to see what's inside, and you spend so much time doing that. And then on the other end of the spectrum, where I love that we all collectively sit, is going out to lunch, with Axe, with you and Jake, and with a new partner or a new potential investor, and just talking about all the things, and and understanding the energy and the intention and the and what the investor or the partner wants, and what they're trying to drive for, and how we can help support that. Like immediately, you're just unpacking so many other layers that it's the cheat code. What was oh, now I can't remember. 007242. It's 1980. What was the one? There's one in Mike Tyson's Punch Out that'll get you to bull, whatever. You know what I mean? That you could put in, and immediately you're taken to level 30 or whatever. That's what this feels like. Is that sort of cheat code that you're not stressing over subject line titles to see if people open. You're having a lunch, and you're just ideating back and forth, and you immediately cut that. Which for me, especially as a startup, and looking at the finances, the budget, the runway, and all these sort of things. What I want that cheat code that sort of gets me to a lunch to immediately figure out is this the right connection? Is this someone who? And I feel like we've done that together now over the past 3 months so many times, where it's immediately just cheat code, and then all of a sudden we're in with someone. And I think what's amazing is y'all's ability to also it's not just the right investor, which you don't know as a startup when you're reaching out. Somebody may invest in SaaS and consumer and AI. That doesn't mean they're going to have the right disposition or juju or energy or connection, or whatever it is. And you don't know that. And then you're all excited that you happen to get in front of an investor, and you're like, I'm here. Well, there's a 1% chance that it's like dating, that you're going to find someone who's going to be the love of your life. But I think what's interesting is it's almost like you all have the ability that all of these things and can cut through all of that. And so everyone that we've met has been just the best, most collaborative. The energy's right, and it may not be the right investment, it may not be the right partnership at this time, but it is right in terms of the conversation, the timing, that we're like, oh my gosh, this is great, and I see it, and and so our network has just grown and grown and grown. So anyways, I appreciate all of that.
And just to add on here, you mentioned something super important. What is the most scarce thing that everybody has? It's time, right? And I think especially as you as a founder, Kyle, and Martina, you as a recent co-founder, which congratulations, where this is amazing news, is of course your time and where you spend your time. You can spend so much time building Stacklist, the platform, the back end, doing the accounting, whatever you need to do as a founder. And what we realize too is this business, because we work with mostly founders of companies, is that you don't necessarily have the right time to, of course, do any cold outreach. That's for sure. But even when it's warm outreach, asking your friends or people in your network who they can connect you to, you don't necessarily have the time or want to do that. So we kind of are seen as a layer there, where we can just set up the meetings, like you said, put calendar invites in your calendar. We hopefully, and what we aim to do is make sure that the other side is on the call, prepared and ready and open-minded to hear what you have to say. That's super important to us. We like being around open-minded, great communicators. And just to take the time away from you going to all these networking events, traveling, and we aim to make it as easily and accessible for you as possible. So when it comes down to what you just said about how you've been able to meet the people within our network and our community, I think the follow-up, of course, is so important, but then also just the flow of time has been something that we've seen help you, I think, a lot in your team.
Totally agree. And I think that's, even when I think about time and resources, and it's been such a, and I'm glad that we, even as an early startup, I'm sure that from the outside there would be people that would say I think you should be spending money on product, or I think you should be spending money on whatever it is. But I almost I'm thankful that, and I hope no one ever takes the title away, that Stacklist is the only diamond client, or whatever we made we made up. But just I love being that so integrated with you all that I almost get I am thankful and grateful. But it's so interesting when I step back from time to time and get complacent's not the right word, but I'm thankful that so much that any one of you three are probably going to text me and be like, we found somebody great, we're setting it up and you're going to talk to him Monday. And I go, okay, amazing. And for me, that would be like probably a week or 2 weeks on that single person trying to figure out the angle of what and the positioning and the messaging and how I would do it. And then I imagine for your partners and the people in your network and the investors and everybody else, that it's also super valuable for them because especially on the VCs and the investors is that time, they get flooded, right? I've got this thing, and I built it and it's going to be great. It's going to transform the world. And they're like, yeah. I can't take another. But what you're doing is you're also vetting, companies like ourselves for the right time, the right space where, to make sure that it's going to end up being the best partnership for that person as well. And so you're doing this for the other side as well, that when they get sent leads of potential partnerships or investments or something like that, that they know that it's going to be super high quality and that it's not just sort of like, you guys should talk, it's so hugely beneficial on both sides.
Yeah, you hit the nail on the head. It's that mutually beneficial relationship. I think one of the things I've loved the most about working with you, Kyle, and the whole Stacklist team is how open-minded you guys are. And what I mean by that is whether it's an investor introduction or a partner introduction or a potential customer introduction, like you said, it may not always, and likely won't always come to fruition the way we both want it to, right? There may not be, a signed, sealed, delivered agreement at the end of it. However, because of your open-mindedness and ability to kind of see different angles in that relationship, we collectively, and specifically credit to you, have been able to get something out of that, whether it's another introduction or whether it's, a brand advocate for Stacklist. And so maybe they came in as a potential investor, but now they're actually a user, or maybe they came in as a user and they love the product so much and now they're considering investing. And so all those different angles come into play here. And I got to give you and the team credit for being able to kind of see that value and not force anything that isn't meant to be received well, and then kind of pivot on the fly and be adaptable to be able to attract some value from that introduction, no matter what the purpose of the initial intro was made for.
Yeah, no, totally. I think about, go ahead.
I was going to say, very well said. I always give Michael his flowers when he says, that was a great thing.
Well, add chocolate to the flowers.
Chocolate, yeah. That's a popcorn too.
Yeah, totally. It's funny. I think about that in sort of make a dating metaphor is when I lived out in Santa Monica. Oh my gosh, this is such a story. It has to be unpacked at some point, but not here. But I had built a website for this like $1 million matchmaker person out in LA. And then as I was building the website, she was like, I got to give you introductions. I'm going to send you all these introductions. And it just wild stories of just like all of a sudden being and eating sushi in Malibu right next to Rick Hilton and just all these things. But one of these people that I met was Elle. We were not the right match from a dating perspective, but that was 14 years ago. And we still talk every couple of weeks. And we have built websites together. She's had me on the podcast. Like over these 14 years, there's so many other like intersections that our lives have had along the way. And I sort of feel like it's very similar in that way, that that having these sort of such high quality introductions and also vetted both for our trajectory and what we need and all those sort of things is you just never know where that's gonna land. One thing I would love to do is sort of pivoting away from how we work together for a second is what you all have seen when I think back to the sort of building Stacklist idea and documenting Stacklist from this process. And maybe Jake, if you want to start, because you've seen the earliest where against advisor recommendations, I sponsored an event that I probably didn't have money to sponsor, but I did it anyway. And then the sponsor said, why don't you get up here and talk about your company for a little bit in front of like 40 or 50 VCs. And then right after that, me getting up going, I'm not a public speaker, but we built a thing. You're the first person I talked to. So I would love to hear even from your POV, just sort of from the outside in, what you've seen in the sort of journey and growth of Stacklist from that moment forward.
I love it. I love that question. I know we're talking about dating, so I think it was love at first sight. going back to it. But of course, you got on stage. We know Going Public very well, which is the event that you were a part of as well. Amazing people, amazing company. And it's also interesting to note that because we have that trust with Going Public, I think it's the automatic trust that we have with you because you were there and you were part of the event, which I think is really important in general in life. When you can find a company or person that you really believe in and they bring in someone to introduce you to, then you automatically feel much more connected to them. So going back to that day, it was probably 4 months ago. We brought a couple members of our team, including Michael and I, and Ari was actually visiting from LA also. So we all were mingling, doing our thing, and then Kyle got on, and you said that exact line that you just said. I don't speak too often, and I don't really enjoy speaking, but here's what we do, and here's Stacklist. And instantly, I think our whole team looked at each other and we were like, we love that guy because you were very open and honest and vulnerable. And I think it's very hard to do that, especially if you're sponsoring and partnering an event. You want to be seen as like the confident, credible source, but you are very open of where you're at for your business and what you do. So first off, we love that. We love that you talked about, of course, your wife and the emotional connection there of what Stacklist is and why you built it, of course. And then I felt connected and called to come up and talk to you to learn more about the business and actually see the platform. So I really think it was love at first sight. You told me more about the business, but more about you as a person. And I instantly went back to the team after and I was like, I just met an amazing guy. We have a call set up next week. I can't wait to hear about his business and what he does, because I think we as a team should use it anyway. So to dive deep into what we all knew was we saw a lot of synergy just working with you. And at the end of the day, like you said on this call, is we have hundreds of companies and people that come and want to work with us in some capacity, because of course everyone wants warm introductions and intros and getting into different networks. But I think our team was instantly on board with you and what you do, because it was kind of just a combination of all things. So that's our first love story. I'm curious what Michael's perspective and our perspective is too.
So before you jump in, so Jake, you're saying figuratively, the way it worked after my speech, you and I talked for a minute, and then we said, "Want to grab some wine? Huh? Maybe grab a bite to eat." Huh?
And then I had to get approval for my.
And so, totally. Sorry to steal.
I do want to throw.
But I remember that event.
Yeah,
I was. It was late for me, and Kyle was doing the presentation the next day, and we were building like, I don't know, new profile, a bunch of new features. And I think it was 10 p.m. for me, and I was releasing to production, and my husband asked me like, what are you doing? Like, it's 10 p.m. I'm like, yeah, but it's startup life. He needs that for tomorrow. We need to be ready. It all has to be perfect. Like, leave me alone. But then it's so funny to see the business side of it, because business and tech should always work together. And that's what people often don't understand. So it's really interesting to see that business part of the story as well as the development part.
And it's probably amazing to hear that, Martina. Ari probably goes through this a lot also. Ari is our head of operations at Nucleus. He builds a lot of the back end that we have, but he doesn't necessarily get to see what it's all like being in person and seeing it all to come to fruition. So you probably love hearing these stories, but what anybody does on the back end behind the scenes is as important, even more important, even than in front of the scenes. So
I remember that, by the way, Martina, and I remember like the day of the event being like, oh yeah, let me show you this really quick. I'm like pulling out my phone to do demos. And obviously we had worked together a little bit, but we hadn't gotten to the place we are now where like, as I'm doing the demos, I'm typing in the URL, but inside I'm going, I'm just like holding my breath and everything. But it always has. It's always fired great. It's always like pulled up, and it's always been great. So I did want also, I was pulling this up for the Nucleus team. By the way, I think Jake, you and I started talking about how we might work together, and obviously as an early startup founder and all being bootstrapped, we're sort of looking at everything that we're paying for, with a high degree of scrutiny and figuring out if this is really what we need to do. I did write Darren back after that event, and I said, by the way, I met with Jake, and have you ever worked with him? Is it a good team to work with? And he wrote back, oh shite, I just left it. Hold on. I'm going to leave you all in suspense. Jake and Nucleus are rock stars. I cannot speak more highly of them. So that's when I probably texted you back, Jake, and was like, great, let's do this.
From a dating perspective, you asked one of your friends if we
I did. I did. You've seen them around at parties, right? Are they weird? Are they nice? They good conversation? Yeah, and so it did work out that way. So
So Darren will
um,
be at the wedding. Okay, great.
um, totally. I think, and so yeah, I'd love to hear Jake your perspective from once you started. I know you and Jake and I had a couple of calls, and then we started kind of working on stuff. What would you say is like? What's your sort of POV on the evolution of Stacklist from that first call we had?
Is that for me, Kyle, or for Mike?
No, for Axe, because you and I think we covered all our early dating stories, but I think Axe, I remember that first call when it was really the three of us and we got on, and and I started explaining, I'm like, you can say restaurants and you can say books. And like you start peeling back the onion, and then there's this like, oh, I get it. And then from that point to here, I'd love
Yeah,
your.
that first call, and it was a similar internal situation where Jake came to me and was like, I just met this guy Kyle, and Kyle, I remember you speaking at the Going Public event and loving not only your presence of vulnerability but the product and the idea behind the product and the vision that you had for the future of the product. And so Jake came back to me and he was like, hey, so I just spoke to Kyle, like really really believe in this guy, and like this product is really cool. I don't know why it doesn't exist yet. I'd love to find a way that we can kind of work with them on all these different things. And so that's when we had that first call. And I'd say the answer to your question, Kyle, about growth from my perspective of Stacklist from step zero to wherever we land today is pretty typical for any other startup founder who's navigating. And you take one step forward, or what they say, two step forward, one step back, and then two steps forward and one step back. And that's a requirement, right? There's no shortcutting that. What you can do is sometimes expedite that process by way of warm introductions and strategic partners and follow-ups, et cetera. But I've seen it day in and day out where, we have a great intro call with an individual, and then maybe there's one that's not the best fit. And then there's a follow-up from the first individual, which is incredible. And, we're all really thrilled about that conversation progressing because everyone here sees what the potential is for that. And so kind of that evolution of continuing to build stack lists, right? But while also knowing that there's going to be some failures along the way, and failures can be small, failures can be big, and those are never going to stop. But at Nucleus, and I know Stacklist echoes the same sentiment, we're big believers in failing fast because we know that it's inevitable. So the ability to do that fast and to do that with a chip on your shoulder and to do that with a sense of professionalism and respect and while being polite, I think that's what's gotten us to where we're at today. And again, it's going to continue for the next 3, 6, 9 months, 3, 6, 9 years with this kind of two step forward, one step back approach. And those steps might just get larger. Maybe it's a hop, or maybe it's a skip or a jump. But that's for me been what's most apparent on the growth side for Stacklist is seeing it day in and day out. And I think one thing that we've done at Nucleus recently is do a better job of taking a step back from being in the business. We're so ingrained in building product and servicing clients, and this is all of us, Stacklist and Nucleus, and doing the things that are required to grow a business, that it's super important to forget 2 steps back, 100 steps back, and look at it from a 30,000-foot view to say, like, okay, this is what we've done in the past 30 days or 60 days and 90 days. What's working well? What's not really working well? What are some areas we can improve on? And doing both those things simultaneously, for me, has been the most, I would say, rewarding thing and apparent thing for Stacklist, seeing the growth from zero to where we're at now.
And just off that, Mike, that was amazing. I just need to share this. We were together yesterday, Michael and I, in Washington, and we were on the train. We were headed there, and we pulled up an Instagram video that you posted, actually, Kyle. And it was a video about you on it was either Saturday or Sunday, talking about how grateful you are to be able to come to where you're at right now, to have an idea for an app or a platform. And actually now it's here. Like your baby that you've actually tried to make is actually here. And I think it's so important for both of you, Martina and Kyle, to take a step back and be like, I've had this idea and concept. Now it's actually here. It's come to fruition. So I think we all could be doing a better job at that. And the best quote that we talk about often at Nucleus is, I think a lot of people say, you're on the pursuit of happiness, right? Everyone always says that, but we think that happiness is in the pursuit. The pursuit is actually the fun part about it. And then when you actually get to the end point, you're always looking for the next pursuit to go on. So I think Stacklist is directly on that pursuit right now. And I think it's just enjoying that step-by-step day of just being on that role and goal to get there.
Totally. I think there's two things. I love that. There's two things I want to unpack from what Axe said. I think the first is um, I was unaware that there will be failures. I didn't get that memo, so I don't. I think it's all just supposed to work great. So I will say that, like, Axe, from what you were saying, um, I think, and Jake, about I call it the matrix. And I've had this in a number of different ways, both personally and professionally, that I've had a number of like personal family losses, and that on the biggest side, that has sort of done that, where it really kicks you out of this, like, your daily to-do list and what you think is important, and you get sometimes so down deep into the matrix and in your own sort of head about how things should be. I think it's been really key for me to try and focus on having enough of the right people around that help me get out of my head and get out of the matrix to sort of really see what the true objective view of something is. And I think, I'll I'll do a group thank you to all of you, because it's interesting that even, Martina does this for me, and hopefully I do it for you too, Martina. But that, like, um, I'll get on a roll and I'm like, oh, you know what we should do, or you know what we could also do, or here's this other, and then Martina goes, hold on a second, like, wait, like, let's let's think about this for a second. But you all do that too. That I love that Nucleus is kind of that while we are so close in a partnership perspective when we're talking every day, that also there are times when I could send over an idea, or like, I think we should do this, or I think we should do that, you all, it's not cold water, but it is an objective view to go, like, I don't know if that's the right, like, you might want to think about it this way, or you might want to think about it that way. And it sort of makes me take a step back from the day to day and go, like, okay, yeah, okay, now I'm more in that 100,000 foot view, and I'm sort of more objective, and I get it, and that's nice. And then you sort of dive right back into doing what you're doing. And I appreciate that also from a Nucleus perspective, as being able to have partners that help you sort of not just drink more Kool-Aid every day, but figure out how to sort of back all the way up and go, like, are we on the right path? Is this all like, and I think what's been amazing is over the past 7 months, every time we've done that, there's only been one or two times where I've thought, like, oh, we're sort of running too hard at something that we could probably ease up and pivot. But like, most everything else has always been like, in that backup has been like, yep, this all looks good. All right, and that's back down to it. So I appreciate that sort of objective view as well. What about where like anything from a partnership perspective, or the way that we work together? Anything that you all think we should do different, or think about, or our trajectory, or what would your recommendation be if you weren't as in it as much, and you sort of took that objective view of Stacklist, sort of, and let's say we hired Nucleus for a quick 30-minute sort of like strategic advisory call and said, where should we go? What should we do? What would that look like?
I love that question, Kyle. It's something we've spoken about with you actually throughout our process, and it's something we may not have an answer to now, but I feel like we're in a much better place today than we were yesterday and 2 weeks ago, which is, I would say, use cases of Stacklist as a product, right? There are so many, like you always use the word layers, which I love, because there are many layers to this. And, Stacklist can be used for sending recommendations for restaurants where I should get dinner with my team tonight. And also, the destinations I love, or the products I use on a daily basis, and a million other things. And there's two thoughts that I have here. The first thought is, you always want to cater to your audience, right? So depending on who you're speaking to, you can try and show them how the product would be most useful for them. And that's something we've gotten a lot better at for sure since day one. And the second part of this is, there's some people that would say it might make more sense to just pick 1, 2, or 3 of those lanes and go deep in those lanes. And then those are the use cases, prove those out, and then expand to new verticals from there. And it's some feedback that we've gotten. We as a collective group here on the call, from investors, from partners, from advisors, saying like, this is incredible. Like, what is it most useful for? And then we say, well, it depends who you are, and that's all true. But I think if, hypothetically speaking, we were to say, hey, you know what, this is actually the most useful and relevant and timely for food recommendations and travel recommendations and shopping recommendations, which is still a whole tall task to tackle. I think that makes us as a team a little bit more laser focused on how to position that, message it, and then also get it across the line to the end user or customer or partner or investor for them to see it and feel it and use it themselves. So that's the one thing that I think we've all been working on. And again, I feel like we're in a much better place today than we were in the past.
I love that. I also think that in that laser focused, if I tie it back to one of the ways that Nucleus helps us is it actually, I had a great call on Friday with a founder that started a community with 3 million community members. That came by way of a Nucleus introduction to me, and the Nucleus introduction introduced this community founder. And so, you start to think about how that sort of spreads from a network perspective, that it's not always just the benefit is not always the sort of one-to-one of just the introduction, but the introductions of the introductions can also have such ripple effects, which is great.
Fun fact.
Amazing. Well,
they say that there's only 3 connections in the entire world that some person at the end of the world. So connections are really important, and networking.
Totally. Yeah. Amazing. So one of us knows Tim Cook. Is that the?
That's yeah.
Do we need to? I'm gonna text. Well, let me go through. One of us should text him and see. Cool. Well, we're running up on time. I'd love to just in the last minute or so is maybe go around the horn, and any other thoughts or sort of or a funny joke or any sort of parting ideas before we sign off.
Art, do you want to start?
Yeah, sure. I was gonna kind of jump in and say, honestly, my favorite part, being kind of more on the operational side of the Nucleus Network, is, Martina, all the work that you do. I know that we haven't spent much time face to face and talking about it, but seeing the product grow and watching Kyle go from just ideas into action has been my real favorite part. And I have been using Stacklist with my friends, my family, and kind of in business, we're all using it now. And just watching the product get better and better and better has been so cool to just be a part of that journey. And also, as watching it happen, watching you guys grow and watching this partnership grow. And like Kyle was saying, how everything kind of snowballs and everything is growing and just continuing to move forward has been so enjoyable to be a part of and watch. And it's really just what a cool journey to be on, and kind of what Jake was saying, finding happiness in that journey and enjoying it while we're on it, because at some point we're going to turn around and it's going to be over, and we're going to have Stacklist in 10 million phones or 100 million phones, and who knows what's next.
That's it. I love it. I love the vision there. And you're right. It's one that video I posted that Jake was talking about was just me in the backyard having this moment where I think for so long I have felt, I don't know, like the odd duck, the odd man out, and in sort of traditional corporate structure, because it's just not how my brain thinks. And also I have to be learning and growing at a hyper speed. And so what's great, and also the people that you're around, making sure that there's the right sort of energy and dynamics, and that's helping, not only me grow, but also I'm hopefully having an impact on the people around me. That I think what I love so much is this place that we're in right now, where it feels like that kind of just the way we work together, and Axe and Jake, the way that you all get out and sort of find these right connections, and Ari, how you and I sort of dive into operational things and tackle things or try new things or whatever, and that sort of fluidity of the startup life while also building and watching this thing evolve, I think has had me reflective in a very appreciative way that I feel like I'm kind of, I don't know where I should be.
We feel the same way about you, Kyle. It's been incredible.
I love you guys. You're so great. Amazing. Well, thank you all. Any parting words or final thoughts as we wrap up here?
How did you get React logo on your shirts?
we built
the React logo.
So the Nucleus Network is similar to what we built Stacklist in.
Yeah.
Did you know that?
So
I didn't know
yeah,
that.
so
It's similar to the language that we built Stacklist in. Maybe it's serendipity.
so it's a
There we
match
go.
from the beginning.
It was, exactly.
I echo what everyone's saying on this call. Like this podcast, not call. I think we're all aligned, and it's hopefully just up from here, but there will be ups and downs like we talked about. So I think we all just got to be level headed and positive going into this next stage.
Yep, agreed. Max, any parting thoughts?
Excited for, listen, it's been a great 3 months, and I'm excited to see what the next 3 months and 3 years has for all of us in store. So like Jake said earlier, it's the journey, not the destination.
3 months. Let's come back and do this same episode 3 months from now. What is that? That's we're in November, December, so end of January, very beginning of February. Let's do this call again and see how it feels and see where we're at.
Maybe we'll go to Brooklyn, or we'll go to the city. We'll figure that one out in person. That's a good story too. I don't know if Martina knows that one, but that's a good one.
No, so let's throw this in as a final sign off. So we went to Jake and Axel had worked it out that we were going to get a tour of Wall Street from the Einstein of Wall Street, and Peter was basically going to take us around. But we had also scheduled we were going to do a podcast for Zero to kind of right after that, and there was kind of some buffer, but I was also like exorbitantly late, which was terrible, and everyone was nice about that, but like it did push us a little bit, and so the podcast recording started to get sort of smushy. So we ended the Wall Street. I get an Uber. We get in the Uber. I punch it in. It's like 255 Lexington Avenue, whatever, and I punch it, and then we're all heads down. Like we got laptops open and phones open, and we're all just like spitting together. Oh, you know what we could do is, do you know? Yeah, I know that person. Why don't we and we're so sort of laser focused and being in this beautiful mind, sort of trying to figure out how to get Stacklist out to the world place. I sort of look up, or I think maybe Jake, you also maybe mentioned like, this looks very neighborhoody or something like that. We ended up on Lexington Avenue, deep into Brooklyn. So we were not anywhere near Manhattan. And I had to text Matt, who's amazing, by the way, at the Manhattan Lab podcast studio, and just be like, let's just call it a wash. And Matt's great. He's like, you can always come back and do this next time you're in New York. But all of a sudden we're like deep into Brooklyn and nowhere near Manhattan. So I guess there's 2 Lexingtons. So that's a word of caution for anyone who types into Uber a Lexington address and then just sort of like, gets wrapped up in their phone. You may end up on the other side of New York that you didn't want to be in. So what did we do? We just pivoted and we just went and ate sushi, right?
That's right. Sushi was still there. It was waiting for us. It was still there.
Totally. Exactly. Amazing. Cool. Well, thanks to you all. You're all rock stars. I'm glad to be partnered with you all and building this thing together. So I'll see you back here in 3 months, and we'll tell more stories.
Thank you for having us.
Thanks, Kyle. Thanks, Martina.
Thank you, Kyle. Thank you, guys.
Thanks all.
See you.
Bye.